GM, welcome to the weekly outlook. This is where I prepare you for the week ahead. We're going to be tracking the Bitcoin cycle low. We're going to be looking at the leverage positioning, whether shorts or longs are offside for next week. We've got the IBIT options expiry. We'll go through the levels. That's BlackRock's Bitcoin ETF. A lot of institutional flows there that can really affect Bitcoin price action. We'll give an update on MSTR and Stretch, how Sailor's doing, ETH, Sol, Hype, SPY, Qs, SMH, Gold. We're going to go through it all. So, without further ado, let's get into the high time frame market analysis. So, Bitcoin. On the weekly, it's been very simple. Right now, 12 and 21 EMAs are red. So, it's bearish on the weekly. To change that, we need a couple things. We need a weekly market structure break. So, the high that led to the most recent low, we need to see a close above that. Number two, we need to see these weekly bands flip green, as you have over here. Those two indicators, for me, are going to be what tells me that cycle low is confirmed. Now, we can have our suspicions. We can preemptively guess where the cycle low is going to be, if you like. But those are the two solid, concrete confirmations, and they typically have been in bear markets on Bitcoin. If I get up a chart with more history, like this one, you can see weekly bands flipping green after your pandemic crash. That was the signal. And you also had the high that led to this low that got broken above. And it was the same thing here. And this was your actual bottom in the 2018 bear market. Your high, which led to the low, once you broke above it, that was when you had your confirmation. And then weekly bands, your second confirmation. Bear market bottom. So again, it's not cherry picking. It's just simple market structure, which has been a theory for hundreds of years in these markets. I didn't invent it. It's just how markets tend to move and basic price action principles. So right now, we don't have that. A weekly market structure break would occur with price closing above 65.7k. That's currently resistance as it stands, as we can see. Price keeps rejecting this level so far. So it's rejecting the bullish confirmation, but it's also been rejecting the bearish confirmation, which of course is this low from February 6th over here. Bitcoin hasn't managed to break down below that. Whereas previously, it's broke down. Previously, it's broke down. So, it's rejecting bullish confirmations at the moment. It's rejecting bearish confirmations at the moment. So, we're not in a trending market. That's what's very clear right now. And zooming in, Bitcoin, it's simply formed a range. Markets either trend or they range. There's only two types of markets. And in ranging markets, you want to sell resistance and buy support. The opposite of trending markets. So right now, Bitcoin is just going sideways in a range between 57 and 67k. Now, we could dive into that range a little closer. And right now, if we zoom into the 4 hour, we can see Bitcoin has distributed all of this week. So after your clear false breakout, Sunday night, Bitcoin then broke below the distribution, respected the 4 hour bands as resistance. CPI was bearish. PPI was bearish. Everything just respected these 4 hour bands to the downside. And that's led you from a rejection of the value area high. So this is a volume profile of all of this price action here. Shows you where 70% of the buying and selling has been done. And that's since Sailor sold his Bitcoin over here pretty much. And that shows us, okay, buyers are not able to get it above that value area high. So if it rejects, expect to move to a value area low. It's very simple range trading principles. So unless price can accept above that value area high, which is at 65k right now, you're looking at continued rejections at this level. Accepting above will be the big sign because you've been unable to accept above over and over and over again. And you can also use something like a 50-day EMA. That's been a key level Bitcoin keeps rejecting when it comes to an EMA standpoint. So that purple line here, rejection, 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 value area high, rejection, Resistance is just rejecting right now. Call it for what it is. Don't overcomplicate it. And now we're coming back to support, back to this value area low, which has previously rejected, and been support. Currently, we've found a bit of support there as well. It's also the August open, so let's see. Can we get some bounces this week? I'm going to dive into the leverage positioning in a second, which will give us a bit more indication into whether we're going to get a wipe of shorts or a wipe of longs next week. But price action-wise, except below here and fail to reclaim it, then you're looking at all of these liquidity targets getting hit over here, which have been building up for some time. Hold above it, and more importantly, reclaim 4-hour market structure. So this is the high that's led to the recent low on the 4-hour. Reclaim that, and you can look at an upside move, maybe towards the value area high again. But until one side breaks, until you actually see bulls or bears take control above the value area high or below the value area low, it's just range bound and ping ponging between the value areas. And let's take a volume profile of this entire range to give us a more broad view of where the buying and selling has been since Bitcoin's been ranging here. So again, very similar levels. You've been rejecting that 65 to 65.5k area over and over again. Bitcoin can't accept above there at the moment, but it also can't accept below 61.5k. That's been where Bitcoin's found a floor, and deviations below have been absolutely bought up. Hasn't led to downtrend. Deviations below have led to reclaims and moves higher. So that's what we're looking out for, guys. What's been happening in this market contextually? Well, since Bitcoin broke down at the start of summer, what you've had is over here, Saylor sold Bitcoin. Below 60k, average of 60,200 in the end. This is where he is doing selling on June 28th, June 29th, June 30th. Price bottomed. He then announced he sold over here. Price bottomed. He then had the US-Iran war escalating here. Price bottomed. And you started to come into the highs. You started to see people talk about Clarity Act getting approved. Bitcoin then topped. And then you had the cold card exploit. Bitcoin bottomed. And then you had CPI. Bitcoin topped. You had PPI. Bitcoin topped. And you had Trezor FUD, and Bitcoin's continued going down. So it's just a very choppy market right now. But all in all, what you're looking for is if you get into the discount zone, so this green zone between 57 and 60.7k, if you get into this zone with bearish news again and price is failing to break down and trend down, then it's going to be a cheap buy for Bitcoin. Because that's what you look for in bear markets. You look for bearish news failing to lead to price going lower, like FTX crashing, marking the bottom, or like the pandemic, marking the bottom. This is what happens, guys. Look, if we go back in history and pull up, again, the long-term chart on Bitcoin and go to the daily, we can see that over here, Bitcoin bear market, bottomed on the pandemic. Oil futures literally went negative, guys. People are literally betting on the world ending because if you're saying oil's not going to be used anymore, well, that has to mean the world is ending because everything uses oil in the world. Absolute bottom. Had nothing to do with Bitcoin. Bitcoin, of course, then rose when we realized, okay, the world's not actually over. And you just see this over and over again when it comes to 2022. FTX had to collapse. The entire crypto industry collapsed with that. 3 Hours Capital, BlockFi, Luna, a bunch of stuff just absolutely collapsing, a bunch of crime, bunch of fraud, and Bitcoin bottomed again. FTX crashing was an exchange, nothing to do with Bitcoin. And what do you have this time? Well, once again, you have a bunch of news that's got nothing to do with Bitcoin. You've got Saylor selling. Bitcoin's been around before Saylor existed and will be around after he exists. Nothing to do with Bitcoin. So far, we've bottomed out. That's been your Pico bottom. You then had your cold card exploit. Yes, a terrible look for self-custody and really bad for sentiment. But crypto seemed over when FTX collapsed. Crypto seemed over in the pandemic. Crypto always is going to seem over in a bear market. That's what you have to remember, guys. And even if you don't remember that, I always say it, objectively, why would you wait for price to go down 53% to become a bear? It's just not the time. Because even if bearish, Bitcoin is still at some point likely to have a rally and take out liquidity here. That's even if bearish. So it makes no sense to be a bear. But since Bitcoin has bottomed, Saylor sold, nothing to do with BTC, cold card exploit, nothing to do with Bitcoin, nothing actually to do with self-custody because it was all just a entropy issue where they had a faulty random number generator for seed phrases. It's not blockchain itself. Trezor was a data breach from their supplier. Again, not blockchain itself, nothing to do with Bitcoin. So when Bitcoin goes down due to things that are nothing to do with it, it's always the best time to buy. And I think in a year, in 2 years, in 3 years, in 5 years, we'll look back at this. We'll look back at Saylor selling Bitcoin, the cold card exploit, and we'll say, yeah, that was a good buy. And we'll mark this video for 6 months, 12 months, 36 months time. Because these are always the times when it is going to be your best opportunity. You want to buy Bitcoin when the least people want it. So guys, sentiment is never going to feel good. You shouldn't feel good at buying Bitcoin if you're buying it at a good price. Didn't feel good buying Bitcoin. I remember I was buying Bitcoin, trading Bitcoin in the 2022 bear market after FTX collapsed. The whole industry was gone. Everyone hated crypto. No one cared. It was as cheap as possible because no one wanted it. When you take it off the hands of people that just absolutely don't want it, everyone's just racing to get out. It's always going to be your best buying opportunity. That goes for any asset, not just Bitcoin. So, yes, Bitcoin is in a ranging market. We have to look for, if it goes to range lows, what's happening news-wise. Is bearish news failing to go lower? If so, probably going to set up a great swing trade opportunity if you're going to get a retest of these lows. Or maybe it's just going to come to this liquidity. The fact that it's come back to this August open probably does make it more likely for downside next week because, you know, we have been respecting those 4-hour bands. Again, we'll dive into that more in leverage positioning. But if it comes to the discount zone, be on the lookout for bearish news failing to leading price going lower. If it leads to price going lower, then cool, bears are in control. But otherwise, can all be forming a range where support is support. And if you get bullish news into resistance and it rejects, resistance is resistance until it breaks above and clears resistance and starts trading into this gap marked out over here, which is, I think, what's going to kick off the bull market. Because when you start trading into these gaps and flipping them into support, that's how bull markets begin. Bull markets begin by, instead of correcting inside of bearish gaps, as you can see, this is a big bearish gap here on Bitcoin. Instead of correcting in them, you just flip them into support. You just absolutely say, okay, bears created a nice gap here. We're going to just flip this into support. That's when bull markets start. When bearish gaps, they stop being respected. We go back to, again, previous bear markets as an example. All the gaps were being respected, which told you bear market's still on. Bear market's still on. It's just rejecting. You're not flipping it. Until this one. Until your FTX collapse gap. That's when you just flip it into support and Bitcoin never goes lower. Bull market kicks off. So it's very clear what we're waiting for when it comes to cycle low. We have got signs of a cycle low, whether it comes to the news, whether it comes to Saylor, cold card exploit, time-wise, when it comes to RSI, especially on the weekly, putting in that big divergence that we've seen. We've got volatility coming down as it should in a bear market. Horrible trading conditions, which is how bear markets form when everyone, literally, not even traders are trading anymore. You had the same divergence there. You had volatility coming down. You had volatility coming down. It's the recipe. This is how assets bottom for the eventual expansion move that is going to come after this range breaks one way or another. Whether it breaks to the upside or whether it breaks to the downside, cause and effect, this consolidation will lead to a big expansion move. That's for certain. So that's the Bitcoin cycle low. Now, I do want to dive into the leverage positioning coming in for next week because we've seen something interesting recently. Been mentioning all my videos this week that you saw futures going up here. So leverage longs were adding positions during this rally while spot was selling. As you can see, CVD is down on spot, whereas it's going up on futures. If that doesn't make sense, make sure you subscribe to my videos because I talked about this on the day. I said spot literally stopped buying on Wednesday. When you have this rejection, I said you're likely to go down. And we've been following that ever since. It's been a down week that I've mapped out in all of my videos. So smash that sub, drop a like and comment if you learned something this week. Would extremely appreciate it. We're almost at 3K. All you got to do is log in and tap a button. What we're seeing now is spot has actually done a little bit of buying going into the end of the week, while leverage has been shorting into these lows. Leverage has been shorting into the August open, into the value area low, which we know has been support. So there's definitely room to spike out some of these shorts that have built up over last week. I wouldn't be surprised, even if Bitcoin's bearish, to see a move that wipes out shorts next week before going lower. And if bullish, well, you're just going to actually build higher high and higher low structure through the range again. So let's see, how does this evolve? Do we keep having spot CVD rising, especially if you have perp CVD continuing to fall? That's going to be an indication that, okay, leverage shorts are probably going to get taken out here because spot market's bidding. And if shorts aren't taking profit at support, the August open at these lows, well, they're going to get wrecked. And maybe they get wrecked and it continues bearish, as I said. Last week was a bearish week. Spot was selling during all of it. And maybe that's just going to be a short squeeze and back to new lows. But I would be on the lookout Sunday night, Monday, for a squeeze up into those levels due to some of that leverage positioning I'm seeing over here. So, quick update on MSTR and Stretch. How is Mr. Saylor doing, our good friend? Well, MSTR, it's very simple. MSTR, the chart is clearly bearish. As we can see, it's trading below its summer range over here. So we can all agree, very simple. While it's below the summer range, it's not bullish. Because if it was bullish, it would have bounced here, which it did, and not gone to new lows. It would have just accumulated and gone higher. But it's lost those lows now. And yeah, you do have news coming out. People like Vanguard buying more MSTR in Q2. And yes, it's definitely an area of value if you're looking to invest longer term into MSTR. The bet is essentially, is Saylor going to blow up or not? Because if he's not going to blow up, and Bitcoin is going to have another bull market, MSTR bears are going to be in trouble. So it's really just a bet on Saylor and his company and whether they're going to stay afloat or not, essentially. But the thing is, Bitcoin's going to show strength first. This chart is relying on Bitcoin to go up before it's going to go up. So Bitcoin needs to make the move first. Look, guys, this chart broke out in February 2024, last cycle. If I pull up Bitcoin next to it, Bitcoin had broken out like a year before that. It's an altcoin. It's an alternative to Bitcoin. Like MetaPlanet, like everything is. Anything that's not Bitcoin, but is getting the benefit of crypto, is an altcoin, an alt stock, whatever you want to call it. Because Bitcoin had broken out from its bear market in March 2023, while MSTR looked like this. MSTR looked terrible when Bitcoin was breaking out in its bull market. MSTR only broke out once Bitcoin was almost at all-time high, guys. Bitcoin was literally at 63K. This candle here, when MSTR only just broke out. Almost at all-time high. So you don't need to worry about getting long MSTR before Bitcoin's shown strength first, before Bitcoin's broken out itself. Because MSTR is probably only going to run once Bitcoin clears 80k, 90k. And it's going to underperform, likely until then. And when all the bears are tired of MSTR underperforming Bitcoin, and they finally sell their MSTR to buy Bitcoin, well, what happens? That's why markets just move based on positioning at the end of the day, guys. When Bitcoin underperformed, all of a sudden, MSTR was breaking out, and you saw the opposite. When it was ready for altcoins to run, MSTR was breaking out while Bitcoin was still trapped in its summer range. MSTR was mooning. Because everyone who was bearish MSTR would have bought Bitcoin at the worst time, when actually it's time for MSTR to outperform. But again, it all starts with Bitcoin outperforming first. So that's on MSTR. Essentially, you don't need to worry about MSTR chart until Bitcoin actually starts kicking off some bull market confirmations. But Stretch, certainly more interesting, because if it comes back to 100, Saylor buys more Bitcoin. We all know how it works. It's not pegged to 100, but 100 is par, where he'll issue more supply of Stretch, and who used the proceeds to buy Bitcoin. And he's been selling Bitcoin and MSTR every week for the last few weeks to buy more Stretch, to show the market he's going to get it back to 100. That's his goal. Strategy was never meant to sell Bitcoin, guys. Whatever you see on Twitter, people hating on Saylor, some of it is warranted. Their goal was never to have less Bitcoin. But they are trying to become this Bitcoin digital bank. And they are now selling Bitcoin, and they have now shown to the market they will sell Bitcoin to ensure this gets back to 100. They want the best digital credit, essentially. So you get into a point where it's breaking out, and the higher it goes, as I talked about in yesterday's video, the higher it goes, the better risk reward you have for shorting. Because you have a stop at 101, 102. Since at 100, he issues more supply, so it shouldn't really go above there. So the higher you go, the better your risk to reward gets. The lower it is, that's why it stayed stagnant for so long, because it was not a good bet to be short there. But since he's buying it back, this is when the higher it goes, the more people that should be shorting. But it's a double-edged sword, because that can also mean this maybe has a wick up one time just to absolutely annihilate anyone trying to take that free short. So, double-edged sword. Do the shorts win and just overpower because the risk reward's so good? Or does Saylor's buying back and intention just lead to a short blowout, and maybe then the same thing happens after? But overall, returning to 100, Bitcoin staying stable. Bitcoin's not breaking down with Saylor selling every week, showing that Bitcoin doesn't care as much. Certainly not as much as when he first sold and it went down to 57k. Why? Because markets price in the future. This is everything I talk about on this channel, guys. That's why price action is more important than news, because markets are forward-looking. Markets have priced in Saylor selling now. That's why we got the dump in June. That's why Bitcoin went from 75k to 57k, guys. Because Saylor sold 32 Bitcoin and showed the market he could sell, and the market priced in that he will sell. And then the selling happens. Sell the rumor, buy the news. Don't trade off news. If you're going to take one thing, if you're going to take anything from this video, that's why Bitcoin had this crash when no one knew why it was dumping. Well, it's because insiders, markets, they price in the future. The market's the best pricing mechanism of reality. Because what better way to show reality than people putting their money on the line? Anyone can lie and say what they're going to think is going to happen, but when people put their money on the line, the truth starts to get revealed. That's why price action's most important. And it dumped into 57k. Then he sold. Got priced in, guys. So, as long as you stay above these levels and you don't break down, it is priced in. And the more he sells, good. The more bearish news, good. The more FUD, good. FUD's great as long as Bitcoin isn't breaking down. Because FUD is just going to create a bottom. And anyone who then sold FUD is going to be in pain when Bitcoin's back at 70, back at 80. Which would just be coming back to the range highs. A big fast move is coming soon, guys. The only resistance in between a big fast move is quite literally 67.3k. When it gets above there, nothing's stopping Bitcoin from quickly going to 73 and filling in this gap, and really towards 77, 80 up here towards the range highs, because there's so many gaps here. But we do have resistance, and that resistance needs to break first. So that's MSTR and Stretch. ETH, Sol, Hype. Do a quick mention of those. So, Ethereum. Very simple. Since February 6th, it's gone below it. It's formed a double bottom. It's broke structure. It's doing what you'd want to see for a high time frame bottom. Zoom out to weekly. Yep, it's come at an area where ETH typically does bottom as well. Not sweat this liquidity. Maybe it's going to front run that. Bears all looking for that level. Weekly bands, much like Bitcoin, still red. So you don't have your bull market confirmation of green weekly bands. Market structure on the weekly has been broken on a close basis. On a wick basis, it's at 2.3K, 2376 to be precise. So we zoom into the daily, which is give us a faster signal, but a less reliable signal than the weekly. And the daily's been building. Double bottom, structure break, now consolidating. It's traded through its daily gap, unlike Bitcoin. It's had less supply pressure as it doesn't have sailor selling. And now you're just waiting. Got a range between 2K and 1740. If it hits there, does it reverse or does it break down? If it hits 2K, does it reverse or does it break out? That's it. That's all you're looking for on it. Till then, everything else is just ranging. It's compression. If it breaks above 2K, then you got a range that opens up between 2.5 and 1.5. And that will then be your next tradable range for Ethereum for the coming weeks and months ahead. So that's very simple. Solana. Very similar again. Weekly bands are red. It's not bullish on the weekly, and it has actually broken down from a big old distribution. Very big distribution. Probably going to be very weak next cycle, bull market, whatever you want to call it. What do you want to wait for? Well, you want to wait for weekly market structure break, bands going green, that starts a bull market. Right now, bands are red, and weekly market structure is sitting at 96. And you've really got 100, which is your key psychological level to flip above. So weekly is bearish. But daily, what builds into the weekly, is showing better signs. February 6th low, failed to break down below. You got a fake out, a trap, then a higher low bottom. You then broke the structure. Now it's ranging. It's found resistance at 80. And if you get a volume profile, everything since that February 6th bottom, currently at that value area low, where any deviations, you're looking to see, do they reclaim? Or does it lead to breaking the February 6th level and going lower? And to the upside, what you really want to do is take a value low from the bottom to current price action and look at it like this. 80 is clearly rejecting. Close and hold above 80, then you're looking at 88 and potentially even 100 as your next targets. And that would then form a range between 100 and the lows at 60. And that will be probably what Sol trades in for a matter of months or so. And if it's going to break out, then it will break out. So does it reject 80 or do you break and hold above 80? And again, February 6th level, does it reject 67 or do you break and hold below? That's all you're looking at on Sol. Till then, ranging, consolidating market. It's going to lead to an expansion move, all of this low volatility. Hype. Now, Hype has been respecting these pivot levels very well. You have the 2024 all-time high, breaks above, continues, then loses it, acts as resistance after being support for so long, but then you get back above it, flip it in support, you break out higher. And you have your 2025 pivot. You get above it, leads to a nice move, acts as support for a bit, but now you broke below it. So Hype is either going to reclaim it flip it into support, and then, okay, you can say hype's bullish. Same way when it reclaimed the 2024 pivot and flipped into support, it was bullish. Or it's going to reject this and continue to new lows and potentially have to reaccumulate back where it previously had smart money reaccumulation, this low volatility sideways action. That's what led to the expansion move. So that's where average entries of whales should be and where they stop selling. So that would be where you look for support if it breaks down below this current low. And that low is at 52. So that's what you're looking at. Break down below 52. And can it find support over here in the 40s? Break above the 2025 pivot. Can you flip it into support? Super simple analysis on hype. And if you guys are looking for an exchange, we got a few more hours left on this where you can get a 10% deposit bonus on anything you deposit. Very exclusive event. They won't run this very often. So if you're not got an account, you get lifetime VIP 4 fees, 10% back of free money to trade with on Yubit. We'll leave a link to that below. Take advantage of it while it's available. You can trade crypto, you can trade metals, stocks, all on there. So check that out. Lifetime VIP 4 fees are definitely a big thing to have as it reduces your trading costs. Now looking at Tradfi, we've got SPY, which has recently broken out above its all-time high. As you can see over here, this is what you'd want to see as a bull. Broke above all-time high, consolidating with low volatility. NASDAQ, not as strong, different to what we've been seeing in bull markets. NASDAQ is nowhere near all-time high. It's broken out, it's had a nice move, and it's consolidating well, and it's got targets above as a catch-up trade. But tech has gone from leading to now lagging in this bull market, which is interesting, of course, fueled by the AI trade really lagging behind in Q3 after a massive Q2 run. And if we zoom in, since inflation data, since CPI, PPI, SPY is up. Qs are up, whereas gold is down. Bitcoin is very much down more than everything. So we're in a market where in July, Bitcoin reacted bullish to inflation while equities reacted bearish. Now you've got equities reacting bullish and Bitcoin bearish and gold bearish. So definitely not the month for these assets, Bitcoin especially, to break out. It's showing that relative weakness, which you have to accept. So that's what I'm seeing in terms of Tradfi. Breakout on SPY should lead to continuation unless you lose 760. Then it will be a false breakout on the daily. Qs, targets higher, can probably hit all-time high. Gold has rejected this liquidation low. It was the first big liquidation after the all-time high. So how does that evolve? Either you break above it and it leads to continuation, or you reject it. So either we clear this resistance, which it doesn't look likely, then you got target higher, or if you reject it, you're looking at gold. Can it form a higher low in these gaps that is formed? There's a weekly gap that's going to be forming now, or has formed over here on gold. So this is now your important gap for any pullbacks. Can it hold the gap? If so, gold's bullish for continuation higher on any pullbacks. If you lose the gap, then you're looking at breakdown. Super simple outlook for gold on the high time frame. This gap is now very important for whether it gets respected and you see a breakdown, or whether it gets supported and leads to a breakout. And a quick look at the AI trade. So how is that doing? It's recovering decently, nowhere near like SPY. It's come off the lows as Leopold got liquidated, but probably got a bit of work to do and probably needs to at least retest the lows again, break out of a nice consolidation before it's going to outperform again. And that's what you're waiting for. Again, like Bitcoin, like every asset, you're waiting for that low volatility consolidation and breakout. Because that's what leads to these generational moves, as we so often see, cause and effect. It's been the trade of Q2. Longs were overcrowded, and those longs need time to churn out. Weak hands need to flip into strong hands again, which is what an accumulation is. Because if they don't, you can also mark down and then drop to a level where that can happen and weak hands can flip to strong hands if they've not capitulated yet. It's just how markets move. It's just supply and demand at the end of the day, guys. So that's the high time frame market analysis. We'll look at FOMC and then we'll look at trade plans. So we do see odds of a September rate hike now as low as 33%, 67% chance that they're going to pause. That shifted from 45, 55 just a week ago. People are pricing in no rate hike in September, but only equities are reacting bullish to this so far. There's no breakdowns in gold and Bitcoin yet. I think it is just a kind of reaction to summer markets, not ready for breakouts yet, but worth noting that odds for a more liquidity positive environment have been getting better, but we're still seeing Bitcoin's not ready to trend yet. And again, it just comes down to price action. It needs to break out of the range. Very simple. So regarding trade plans, it's been, very much the same when it comes to Bitcoin on the high time frame. Obviously, let's try to keep it high time frame on the weekly outlook rather than low time frame because they can play out before Sunday night's even over. High time frame, if you see support at the discount zone, bearish news as well, I'll be looking at swing longs there. If not, if we're just going to break out from here, then I'll be looking at momentum longs once we start getting into this daily gap. So two trades. Either get long at support if you see it holding, or wait for the break into this daily gap and get long and ride momentum. That's what I'm looking at. So guys, if you appreciate this video, make sure you smash a sub, comment, and like. Would really appreciate it. Link to Yubit. Take advantage of the 10% deposit bonus. We'll link that below. I'm going to be away. We'll try record as many videos as possible next week. We'll keep you guys posted. GM.